When you create the greatest wrestling game of all time, you now create a new problem for yourself. How do you follow it up? In 2003, that was the question that THQ and Ukes had to ask themselves when they released Here Comes the Pain. They achieved it, they're on top of the mountain. But if they follow up that game in the next installment of the SmackDown series and it doesn't deliver, it will always be compared to Here Comes the Pain. So the most logical thing to do is to just end the SmackDown series on a high note, and that's exactly what they did. And then for the 2004 installment and the next entry in the WWE gaming series, they decided to find a new identity. But they couldn't just do that. They had to evolve. They had to figure out what more can they now add to this series. And one of the things is characters. Now, what do I mean by that? There's wrestlers in wrestling games, but up until now in this series, they were just that. They were wrestlers. They didn't really act like themselves on TV. Yes, they have the moves, but were they good guys or bad guys? That was the focus for this game. Also, the focus was more of a presentation feel. Double down what's already happening in the product that you see every day on WWE. And the result, essentially the foundation that every WWE game has followed since. We're looking at SmackDown vs. Raw, the next installment of the new name series, as well as the blueprint for every WWE game that followed. Now, the first thing I would actually like to do is show you this article from Eurogame. This was essentially an interview back in September 1st, 2004, leading up to the release of SmackDown vs. Raw. And the one thing I actually was just this little part right here that I thought was interesting to share with you guys to start our story here, which was Eurogamer asking this question right here. What about the coming together of Raw and SmackDown? Because again, this name kind of came out of nowhere. It was only called SmackDown. Now you add Raw to the mix. We're going to get the context here a little, and I will expand upon it. What about the coming together of Raw and SmackDown? Raw didn't get anywhere near as critical acclaim on Xbox as SmackDown did on PlayStation 2. Is SmackDown vs. Raw going to be released on Xbox as well? This is for PS2 only. You shouldn't think of Raw being only on Xbox. The Xbox game is actually WWE WrestleMania 21. So each platform will still have its own specific game. We'll get into that in a second. And then the second question is, how do you feel about that? Would you prefer to see this game on both PS2 and Xbox? And the main part I want to go over is the part where he said, where is it? I think one of the challenges that we face, in all honesty, is that the games that were developed for GameCube and Xbox up until this point weren't as strong as they should have been. So we're playing a lot of catch up now. I think this year with the GameCube product, we're at a point where it should be, and we're confident that we'll get that point with Xbox. Spoiler alert, that did not happen. So let's get into a brief history lesson of where the WWE game universe was in the year 2003-2004. Because you see, SmackDown wasn't the only WWE game that was being produced. It was only being produced on PS2. But there's also other consoles that were available. The GameCube from Nintendo and Microsoft's Xbox. Oh, hey, Nolan, I appreciate you stopping by. I know we're in different time zones, so I just appreciate you being here. There was also, again, for Nintendo, they were offering, at the time, the WrestleMania series, which ended on WrestleMania 19, and this was the start of a new series, Day of Reckoning, which was also being released in 2004, coinciding with SmackDown vs. Raw. For Xbox, however, it's kind of a different story. The last game on the Raw series was Raw 2, that released in 2003. Although it was an improvement off the original Raw, it didn't meet the expectations, review-wise and sales-wise for the Xbox. It's more so that the Xbox at the time didn't really have an install base as big as the PlayStation, and even so the GameCube. It was just, again, really catered towards a very specific audience. Because of that, Raw kind of suffered. There's many reasons why Raw did not do as well as it did. Part of it has to do with the game itself and how it's structured, just on a system that wasn't there, again, the Xbox was a brand new system competing against PlayStation and GameCube. It wasn't until the Xbox 360 where Microsoft really started to pick up steam. So that was the situation of Xbox. So because of that, and with them trying to figure out how can we move on from Here Comes the Pain, they decided to delete the Raw series from Xbox, but left only Day of Reckoning and at the time the SmackDown series. I mean, Raw 1 only came out on PC. It also came out on Xbox as well. It came out on both Xbox and PC. But it's funny that you mentioned Raw on PC because that Raw will play a later part into another game story very later on in the coming days. So glad that you, it came out on Xbox. Raw was the first game that came out on Xbox. And also the first and only game for quite a long time to come out on PC. But don't worry, it's gonna play a major part in the story when we get to that. But yeah, so since they're not using the Raw name anymore, they can now borrow that, drop the SmackDown series, and now it is called SmackDown. So the funny part about the Raw game, I played the PC demo for it. I think it was like The Rock and Kane, and again I played it. It's a fine game for what it is. I wasn't expecting to be anything special. Obviously, sucked only having one arena, but again, they were trying something new. Graphically, it looked amazing. It looked better than the SmackDown series graphically, like it really did. Like the thing with Xbox, it had the power. They just didn't know what to make of the game. They had the power, but they just didn't have direction of what to make of that system at the time. The Xbox 360, they knew what they were doing, but in terms of the Xbox, it was just Microsoft trying to find its footing in the gaming marketplace. But you gotta give them credit for that. And because of that, they were able to take that name and form SmackDown versus Raw. It's allowed me to show you the beautiful game case that came with this, because normally I don't show like the back, but I really wanted to show you the back because the direction they really wanted to go, they wanted to emphasize, yes, it's a SmackDown versus Raw. And the cover person on this was a very interesting choice. Vince, the person who created WWE, and they have his eyes both one color blue and the other color red. The difference between SmackDown versus Raw. It's one of those covers where you just appreciate the direction they went art wise when you really look at it. And then the back as well, like the color scheme, red and blue, two worlds collide. Because this is the first time now where really, even though Raw was in the game, it was essentially the color scheme, all the aesthetics in the game was just SmackDown, even though Raw was there. Now it's the first time where it's like, yes, and I'm going to show you when we get to the actual menu of the game what I'm referring to. Two worlds collide. They added some bunch of new stuff, the challenge mode, which we will get into. And the main selling point of this game was, again, character driven. These superstars are finally going to have personalities. You can either play as a good guy and bad guy. I'll expand upon that later. Brand new season mode with commentary as well as voice acting for the first time. Also create a championship. There's a bunch of new stuff that they added to this game, but I just wanted to show off this cover. At the time, Eric was still the manager of Raw. Yes, Eric didn't stop becoming manager of Raw game-wise until SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. 2006 was the last time he was in the series as the general manager. One moment. So, with that, give me one moment as I prepare the gameplay so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. All right, so disclaimer. Yep, appreciate it. So disclaimer, I unfortunately again have to mute the sound, the music in this game. We're gonna talk about the music because it plays. You can't talk about the SmackDown vs. Raw series without talking about the music, because this was the first time the series had licensed music in the game. And honestly, for a lot of people, the music in the SmackDown vs. Raw series shaped their taste in music, and I am one of those people. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first thing I want to point out, in the interview, he said you're really going to see the Raw versus SmackDown nature once you boot up the menu. So as you can see right here, it says Raw. And the two divas that were being the loading screen, similar to Here Comes the Pain. Because in Here Comes the Pain, it was the male wrestlers. But in this game, it's just showing the women as the menu screen. And it's Trish Stratus and Stacy Keibler, as you can see. But if you go to your in-game options, and you hit the menu type, you can pick between Raw or SmackDown. So if I hit SmackDown and I hit continue and we're going to save it, you're going to notice the difference. Fireflies could shine. Yep. The greatest to this day. We're going to, again, we're going to deep dive into the soundtrack and really talk about that in a little bit. It's just arguably, it represented the era. There's more to the soundtrack, but yeah, now you see the more SmackDown aesthetic with Tori Wilson and Sable as the two women featured. We're gonna switch to Raw just for the sake of this presentation. We're just gonna switch to Raw, and then we're gonna focus on the gameplay. But yeah, in terms of the soundtrack, I mean, the soundtracks back in the day, again, it's a perfect example of knowing your audience. I'm not saying the current day soundtracks in these games are bad, but it's like wrestling audience have a certain taste, and the developers of Yuke's THQ knew that, so they gave us the music that we wanted to hear. I don't know what nowadays the actual soundtracks in these games are just what are the top 25 songs on Apple TV and on Apple Music and Spotify. That's what they're showcasing. So just again, quick look at the menu. It's very, even though they completely abandoned the SmackDown name and Here Comes the Pain, the menu setup is essentially virtually the same. They just now added Raw aesthetics in SmackDown. They also use metal and heavy rock as bait. This was I'm telling you, Ruthless Aggression era knew their audience. And I think the biggest problem with transitioning into the PG era is that they forgot that audience was still watching. I know you had to give it the time, but like some stuff as simple as music could really like help like cater to your audience, like that you know what you're listening to. Nowadays, I mean, some Triple H has the right idea. Speaking of Triple H, he's right there, and we're about to use him. So as you can see, you could do the same thing, start, max. And then one thing I'd like to point out that was in there, everyone's brand aligned. So now, not just in season mode, in the actual roster, when in the regular play mode, they're brand aligned. So Triple H for Raw, Undertaker for SmackDown, you get the idea. There's also legends that are unassigned, but everyone is brand affiliated. This is the first game to do that. Again, the foundation of the WWE games that are in the future all started with this game. Brand alignment, good guy, bad guy, which we're about to get into. Same thing with Here Comes the Pain. You can either start with 0 or you max out. And this is what I'm talking about. The biggest, essentially the main selling point of this game was the clean and dirty system. So you have a choice of either being a good guy and bad guy. For this, obviously, Triple H was a heel back then, so we're going to hit dirty. And we're going to go up against Chris Benoit, who was a face at the time. But essentially, they still borrowed stuff that was in Here Comes the Pain. Same deal, you got to unlock the arenas in season mode. And for this demonstration, we're going to go at Raw. And the very cool thing is that, again, they really hammered in the presentation. This was essentially the Raw graphics, tail of the tape, how it was, just like how it was on the show. And the same thing, just to quickly show you with SmackDown, they had this as well. And for the pay-per-views, they have accurate pay-per-view. Again, they really wanted to have that TV presentation feel. Nowadays, you can use any wrestler without worrying about overalls too much. Yeah, overalls didn't mean much, though they don't mean anything now, but back then these were also a very big deal. Like, if Here Comes the Pain was a perfect example of that, where Brock Lesnar, Goldberg are the most OP people, but now overalls mean absolutely nothing in today's game. It's like the current developers don't know what a wrestling game is, and the tiers and the whatever. But that's another story for we'll eventually get there. And yes, we'll talk about the attributes when we get into season mode. I meant to talk about Here Comes the Pain, but that wasn't really a factor. Again, just showing off the entrance one. Again, they fortunately can't show this. I might get content ID when it goes full screen like that. They definitely updated the poly count. They essentially doubled the poly count that was in Here Comes the Pain. So now Triple H actually looks like Triple H. They updated the lighting, so now he has proper lighting coming into the arena. Again, the presentation was definitely updated with this year's game and this installment of the game. However, you notice the cutting of entrances, cutting to certain sections. It won't be until tomorrow's look at the next installment of the series, 2006, where they finally have full-fledged entrances from start to beginning. So this was the last time where they have cut entrances. See, I just cut off of him what's on top of the rope. And the same thing with Chris Benoit. The lighting, the cameras, and like see how the camera panning as well, instead of just going from like a wide shot just close up to him, they really try to mimic how the camera angles are working for the entrances of the superstars as well. Yeah, essentially everyone's entrances was updated. Perfect example, Undertaker. He reverted back to his dead man gimmick in this game, so they had to make sure that was 100% updated. Essentially, none of the entrances that were in Here Comes the Pain are in this game. Everyone has a specific updated entrance for the most part. A lot of people in Here Comes the Pain had generic walks once they actually got into the ring, but everyone for the most part has an updated entrance specific to them. Like I said, they really try to make it more character driven. Everyone is going to start feeling like they're a superstar. We're about to see it right here. So as you see, there's already a complete difference here. This is the mini games. At the start of the match, it could be. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Am I not play? Wow. I'm actually not even playing. Okay. That's a fail. I'm actually not playing, but actually we can at least demonstrate what these characters are doing. I can at least talk about it. So the clean and dirty system, the match tactics. I know I accidentally did not, but whatever. But it's cool. They're on legend difficulty, so it should be fine. So for a clean wrestler is a good guy, he has to play the role as a good guy to fill up his bar. Hey, what are you playing? Well, we're playing. Let's going over the history of SmackDown versus Raw. If you're new, this is a 25-day event where we're going through the entire series of WWE games to see how we got to 2K26, and we're currently on the SmackDown versus Raw series. So you see this bar under Triple H and Chris Benoit. That's a new thing that they added to their HUDs: a dirty bar and a clean bar. And depending on the moves that they do, they will fill it up. So, for example, to fill up the bar for a heel, you start being a bad guy. What does that indicate? So, if you're doing a submission and they're near the ropes and referee calls for rope break, you can ignore it. That's how your bar goes up. Do stuff like take the turnbuckle pads off, taunt while your opponent's outside the ring. Little simple stuff like that will fill up your bar. That is how you fill up your bar for a bad guy. Clean superstar, essentially do the opposite. Do spectacular moves, do high flying moves, taunt while your opponent's in the ring. Play by the rules. Stuff like that. I'll go over the list eventually. It'll be a lot easier if I just actually play the game. I don't know why I did not pick. I don't know why I did not hit player one. So just what we're about to do right here, because they're taking their sweet time. My apologies. I could have swore I hit first player. That is so strange. Unfortunately, you see Zebrahead is Alone is playing one of my favorite songs, but unfortunately we can't listen to it because of copyright reasons. But that's okay. That's okay. Now I'm going to actually demonstrate everything that I said. Well, see, they're explaining right here. It's like, or if I'm near the ropes for a submission, I can ignore it and it'll fill up my meter. Stuff like that. Essentially, be a bad guy. Now, here's one example of the mini games that I was referring to that debuted in this game. You gotta be quick about it, though. You see, and Chris Benoit got me. I was not quick. See how he's taunting while I'm in the ring? Since I stopped it, though, his bar is not going to go up. And the one thing about the gameplay is that They slowed it down from Here Comes the Pain. And one of the biggest things, as you hopefully noticed, they also switched the camera angle. For the first time now in the series, we're not facing the ramp. We're just facing the crowd. Again, they really wanted to do the TV style presentation because realistically in real life, it's not often that they switch to the ramp facing it. That was just for the video game, but to replicate what you're seeing on TV, they decided to switch to the crowd. And that's, I mean, it was fine, but I can understand why you want to actually see the arena that you're in while you're playing the game. They eventually caved in later games by giving it back to us, that option. But also the camera cuts are similar to TV as well. That is true. You saw even with the entrances, like how Chris Benoit came out. Okay, that's how they did it with Chris Benoit when he was wrestling. I'll try to do one of my dirty tactics. I'm trying to get into a submission near the rope so I can demonstrate. Let's see. Another thing, I think you can... Is this the game you can argue with the ref? No, I think it's the next game. All right, so I could taunt. Well, now he's gonna break it up. Had he not broke it up and I was taunting while he's on the outside, I would have got my bar to go up. It's in... Okay, yeah, I knew it. It was the next game that we can actually argue with the ref. And they definitely slowed the game down a lot, but essentially, the game plays exactly like Here Comes the Pain. So if you played Here Comes the Pain, there's no reason why you would not be able to understand the mechanic. They just slowed it down a little because, again, they wanted to go a slower pace. They didn't go full simulation, which is funny because this is actually the last game to have the arcade style feel. Moving forward to the rest of the series, we essentially either go through a simulation phase or a hybrid. This was the last game to have that, still have that arcade feel that was in the beginning of the series. I was trying to get closer to the ropes. But just to show off real quick, another dirty me taking off the thing if Chris Benoit would allow me. The turnbuckle pad, but Chris Benoit would not allow me to do that. Just to show off what I mean by examples of what you can fill the clean meter. Perform your signature grapple moves. Perform any diving attacks. Perform dive attacks. Again, just be a showman is the best way. What is the best WWE retirement match? You want my opinion of what was the best retirement match for a superstar? I want to make sure I got the right question. And how do I pronounce your name? I don't want to butcher it. Francis? Is it Francis? I don't think that's how. I don't know. I'm gonna make sure I'm pronouncing your name right. For and negatives. Essentially, the negatives are exactly the opposite of what I would have to do. Perform dirty moves, low blows, eye pokes, weapons attack. Remove the turnbuckle. Perform an Irish whip to the exposed turnbuckle. Perform any grapple moves onto the exposed turnbuckle. Break your own pin after a 2 count. Taunt from the outside to the ring when opponents in the ring. Attack a wrestler while they're taunting. Ignore the referee's rope break. Complete the referee. Complain to the referee about a 2 count. So I can complain to the referee in this game. Attack your partner manager. Push, drop an opponent off the cell. Attack the illegal part. You get the idea. Essentially, and I can also call for interference, which Triple H even have any friends? I'll try. But Chris Benoit is really on me. This is what happens when you have a legend difficulty. You think you're good at the game. Evolution, sir. But I forgot how you call it. Do you hit the R3 button? I'm hitting the R3 button. Hopefully they come out. God damn it. Wait, how is this his finisher? Oh no, did he just steal someone? How is this his finisher? I thought it was the crossface. Something's going on here. Isn't the crossface and headbutt? How is this his finisher? That's so strange. Is it R3? Or do I need a finisher or something? Don't worry, we're about to come back. Are you serious? The save file? I did not. I think at a certain point, maybe I guess your health has to be red. Or like a certain duration of the match. Either your health has to be in the red. I don't think it was R3. Try hitting R3 and L3 together. I'm hitting it. I think you had to be damaged to a certain point. And I see how his bar is filling up. We're at the ropes. I'm getting my ass handed to me. This game's a lot. Are you serious? Yo, Chris. He's just... I picked the worst person to demonstrate. I forgot him and Kurt Angle are literally notorious for just reversing everything in the goddamn game. This is not going to work out. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Or not. I got to slow this guy down. Really got to slow this guy down. Pull his leg from underneath. I'll try. But I got control now. At least I thought I did. No, just him and Chris. It's a reverse fest. But as you saw, my bar finally went up. Don't worry, we're coming back. And now to continue to get my bar up, we're gonna now, or at least I was trying to throw him into. We're just gonna now use. Nope, nope. He is really something. Well, he got me there. Got him. Got his leg. Got it. If I can slow him down, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, we're getting somewhere here. Attack the ref. What the? Referee's too fast. There we go. Got him. Next time I gotta pick a heel submission person so I can demonstrate more of the submissions. Of course he reverses that, because why wouldn't he? All right. And of course he reverses my finish. But you see how his clean meter just got for some reason it decreased. I just saw it decrease. Nope. 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 No. 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 Nope. 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 I'm right there at the ropes. Come on. He is just relentless, this guy. Where's Evolution when you need him? Oh, come on. I don't understand the sharpshooter. I thought his finisher was the headbutt. And the yeah, so how the heck does he have that in the crossface? I probably lost. I'm not gonna. Oh wait, I kicked out. I kicked out again. I don't know how I'm kicking out, to be honest with you. But unfortunately now the damage is already done. Chris Benoit is actually, he's good. He's good. Damn it. Whew. I'm pressing R3 and L3. I'm pressing the back buttons. Nothing. Do I have I'm gonna check it. It's not like I turned interference off. That's why, like, I really don't understand. We'll check in the menu. I know that someone should have came out and helped me. But I will say, if I somehow win this match, I earned it. I was so close to the ropes. I really wanted to show off the ignoring the referee aspect of it. But what I can do is just use this to my advantage. I can hurt his head. Enough. I can just focus on that head, so if I hit the pedigree, it should be over. And then we're going to switch to a clean superstar, like The Undertaker, and be nice about it. Whew. You just stay over there. Uh-oh. Whew. Beat him to the Ring of Terror. Oh, the Reign of Terror. I'm just working on that head. That came out wrong. Or I can actually submit Chris Benoit. I feel a finisher. Trying to make him bleed. The running knee. That probably will do it. There we go. Wow, you called it perfectly. You really called it perfectly. That's crazy. Uh oh. No, 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 no. See how you just lost? Oh. Oh, come on. Nope, too late. I'm next to the ropes. I'm next to the ropes. I'm next to the ropes. Or I thought I was. I'm next to the ropes. I'm next to the ropes. I'm next to the ropes. Come on. He got me. Nope. I gotta hit this finisher and call it. Not. Oh, come on. Yep, it's over. If he kicks out of this. Whew. I worked for this. The only side effect with this game is there's no post-match celebration. For some reason they took it out. Don't know why. Now we're gonna flip the script and go for it with a good guy. See how that plays out. And we're gonna use The Undertaker. Hopefully have a better against it. Was Edge a bad guy? No, who's a bad guy? We're gonna use JBL. What a perfect oh yeah, so interference. Interference was off. You're absolutely right. My mistake. I have no idea why it was off. Huh. You are absolutely right. No one. I appreciate you telling me that. I have zero idea why it was off. They see they 100% updated Undertaker's entrance, which is crazy because, again, he returned as the dead man at WrestleMania. And during this time cycle, they had until SummerSlam to update everyone. So the fact that they made sure, I guess they had to really make sure he was updated. Which is why I could tell it was based off his WrestleMania entrance for that year. And this is what I mean when I say they cut it off. These are not full-fledged entrances yet. Because I never, it always irritated me how his entrance ended right here. It was so strange. His entrance just ends right here for some reason. So baffling. Well, at least they got the eyes down. And then for JBL, fortunately he didn't have his limo. Would that be in the next? I think that is in the next game though. They made sure I have it in the next game. And here he is talking to the crowd. Does the money come down? I don't think the money comes down. I wish they kept Biker Take. American Badass Undertaker is always my favorite Undertaker. He was wild in his day. He was a true heel. I know people would say what he did is offensive now, but again, people don't understand. It's a character. You're supposed to hate the guy. I don't think JBL is that bad of a person in real life, but that's kind of the whole point. This is that's also kind of the current problem with the WWE today. It's not because the wrestlers, just the fans aren't getting with the program. You're supposed to shoot. You're supposed to boo the bad guy, but yeah, all they do is cheer him. That's, I mean, it is what it is. That's what you have when you make cool heels. That's the reason why they went the direction what they did with Randy Orton, with Pat McAfee. It's like, how can we make sure you boo this guy? We think Biker. Then what about? Oh no, I didn't think Biker Take was offensive. I meant JBL. You misunderstand. No. Ministry Dark Undertaker was a crazy. That's like the darkest character he went. Literally trying to sacrifice people alive. I thought when you said he was wild in this time, I thought you meant JBL. I didn't realize you were talking about the Undertaker. Okay, one of the things to raise up your clean meter is diving. I believe Undertaker's die. I didn't mean JBL, my bad. But yeah, no, I mean, Big Evil Undertaker was something when he became a heel, but nothing tops the Ministry Undertaker. Literally a cult. Was going to sacrifice Stone Cold alive, was gonna marry Stephanie McMahon against her will. All that good stuff. Yeah, one of the easiest things to do. And then just do your signature. In case you forgot, the signature is the left in circle. So that's one of the easiest ways to get your clean meter up. Now that's a powerful choke. I mean, body slam. But yeah, JBL, he knew how to be a heel. That's the thing with the Ruthless Aggression era. They pushed these characters, they cranked them up by 11 to really get heat from the crowd and make you cheer for them. You hated Triple H because he always won, whether it was on purpose or for story reasons or because of backstage politics or whatever. But the point is, you hated Triple H. You want him to eventually lose. He finally did. A couple in cages against Shawn Michaels, Chris Benoit, and then eventually Batista. But that was the whole point. Same thing with JBL and SmackDown. They knew how to establish. I feel like back then, with now looking at these games, is like as reminiscent of the Ruthless Aggression era. They knew there was more long term. Not saying it is like Triple H is trying. I could tell he's trying because he was a part of this era, so he knows how it worked. He's trying. It's just hard in today's climate. They knew how to do long-term stories to get the eventual guy they want to get over. Like Cody Rhodes is like the last example of that. The 2-year arc of him finishing his story. It took 2 years, but people had to be patient. That's why when he initially lost at WrestleMania 39, people were livid, but it's like they didn't get the bigger picture. The payoff was much more better with WrestleMania 40. I think everyone can agree on that. Y'all just had to build to that. You had to see him. You had to see Cody Rhodes lose to make him feel more better when he actually won. He just goddamn this. I'm about to read that comment in a second. I was about to lose. Hold on. He said that he isn't the one booking the main event. I don't think he died. So I know. Yeah. So you see, you felt it. But to answer that previous question you just said, I don't think it's 100% true. I think people are. Someone took a report that wasn't true. Someone took it. I know what you're referring to. Someone took an out of context audio clip from that Mark Shapiro person, the guy who runs TKO. If you actually listen to the audio clip, yes, he did say, yes, they're in control of it, business wise and inside out the ring. But I think people took that clip out of context because the actual, for those that was like literally like an investor's call. What the person asked was referred to the business side. How much control do you have over WWE? He's like, oh, we have 100% control. People took that out of context to mean they control WWE in terms of creatively or whatnot. That's where people are confused. I know exactly what you're talking about, but the clip was taken out of context. I'm not saying TKO has no creative control, but that specific clip was 100% taken out of context. But of course, people run with it. Anything negative about WWE, especially on X, they will just exactly. That was literally it was an investor's call. The guy asked business wise, how much how much control do you have on the business end? Because he was talking about both UFC and WWE. Because you know TKO, besides those two, they run the boxing, they run bullfighting and horse whatever. So he was asking on the business side, how much control do you have over WWE? Because you know Nick Khan is technically in charge of WWE. But he said, oh no, he said, oh, I have all control, both. And people just took that out of context. So I just activated the clean one, and once you have it, what do I actually get? I become completely invincible and I deal extra damage. Which means this tombstone should hit. And it does.
1, 2, 3.
There we go. This one wasn't much of a problem. But yeah, so I just wanted to show you guys really both the clean side and the dirty system for that. Hold on one moment. So another thing, before we get into season mode, I actually want to show you, where is it? How should I present this? Actually, we'll do one more singles because I wanted to focus on, I wanted to talk about, yeah, we'll try interference. So let's pick someone random. Let's see. Batista should be part of Evolution at this point. So if I pick him, Batista should 100% be part of Evolution. So we'll pick Batista and we'll go against someone from Raw. A-Train? No, A-Train's on SmackDown. Chris Jericho, why not? But he's dirty, but who cares? We'll just pick Backlash, interference. I'll try. I'm gonna try the interference. Yeah, so it's always off by default. Okay. Pressing R3 by any game will cause stable member to interfere on behalf. Will not occur if the superstar is not part of the stable. Gotcha. As much as I can remember, there's only we're gonna show it. We're gonna show it. Don't worry. Like I said, I've had this event planned for 2 months. I know the ins and out. Well, you see, we're gonna talk about season mode in a second. I really just wanted to focus on And one more thing. Hopefully I get like a mini game out of this. I didn't really focus on the mini games. Again, dirty taxes. So hopefully I can start doing some of that with Batista. Chris Jericho not give me that much of a hard time. I would hope so. But here you go. Another part of the mini game. The shoving contest. This is what I was talking about. And now there's going to be a meter for me. And that was excellent. See, this is another part of mini games. The mini games will happen one more time in the next series, and they'll literally disappear until the current. Damn, I missed it. So now it's Chris Jericho's turn. These mini games will not, mini games in general will not appear again after the next game, literally until today's 2K26. By the time you're watching, until 2K15. There was mini games in 2K15. I actually do not remember that. Oh, you're talking about change. Oh, yep. You're absolutely right. If you want to consider, yep. My mistake. Whoa. So I didn't even know I could do that. You're absolutely right. It took me a minute. Yep. It took me a minute, but you're absolutely right. And I just called on someone. There it is, Triple H. Is this gonna be squat? And okay, Triple H, you got it, bro. Right, that wasn't considered a and now here I am attacking the referee. Do I get DQ'd? Oh no, the fake muscles from DC. Are you talking about Batista? Is he Marvel? Don't you mean Marvel? But I get what you're talking about. But nice, thank you for stopping by, Tony Gilbert. You're wondering what you walked into. This is day 6 of a 25-day event where I'm going through the history of WWE games, of how essentially looking at every game to see how we got to 2K26. He's from DC. Oh, you're talking about why? Okay, never mind. I get what you're saying. I thought you meant DC as in I was in the mindset of Marvel and DC. Yes, he is actually from DC though. You're absolutely right. So now it's my turn, and I can't even see. Oh, but I got it perfect, despite my camera being away. As I said, this is an event where I wonder if I throw him out, and Triple H can actually do his finisher on the outside. That would actually help a lot. Anything DC yet, has he? No, that's why I thought you meant that I was correct. I was like, no, he's actually from Marvel, but he is from DC. But you are absolutely right. He is from DC though. See how he's helping me? The interfere. I think this is not the first game since like Just Bring It where you could actually interfere. I don't believe Here Comes the Pain and Triple H was gonna grab him when he had hair. I mean, he still kind of does. But I get what you mean. This is what before he cut it and we like super heel Jericho we all know and love back in 2008, where he became full. Triple H, you had a job. There we go. Look at that clothesline. He literally had a job, but I think since thanks to Triple H, I should be able to get the dirty meter up. Don't worry, I'm about to feed him to you, Triple H. It's a lot. So if you haven't figured it out, it's a lot harder to get your dirty meter up than it is to face, because you got to think outside the box a little bit more with the for being a heel. Luckily, since this is still the arcade era, I love how is the boss. Besides, he was prime burying folks. Period. Right here. I mean, yes, in a character sense, you're absolutely right. But I don't think he. At the end of the day, I feel like people misinterpret like he was real life burying. He hated these guys. He was doing. At the end of the day, he was doing what Vince McMahon told him to do. But by doing that, though, he got the people that he needed to get over. Think about it. Because of his reign of terror, because those who don't know, when Raw and SmackDown separated, again, they were two completely different shows. Raw, there's a coin in the wrestling community is the reign of terror. It's referring to from the years 2002 to early 2005, basically. This was the Triple H show. Raw was the Triple H show. As in, everything evolved around him, which it did. Evolution controlled Raw, which it did. And he basically had world heavyweight title 75% of those 4 years I was talking about most of the time. He got some people over. He got Chris Benoit over. He got Batista over. Well, that was the whole point. I mean, I know what you're saying. He got Randy. He didn't get Randy over. He got Batista over because that was the whole point. He was trying to make, it took a minute, but I think the whole point is he was trying to make, the problem is with The Rock and Stone Cold leaving, they need to make new stars. The only way to do that is by forming a faction. At least on the Raw side. Triple H is the bitter heel. Eventually have his two henchmen go on their own path. And that was Randy Orton and Batista, even though Randy Orton was a heel, but they both became stars out of it. Randy Orton and Batista. And it worked out. And he did the job at WrestleMania against Batista. Chris was never over on his own. He didn't need Triple H. I mean, there's a difference between like wrestling over and superstar over. I feel like there's a difference that people tend to forget. Everyone could I would say it wasn't until he won that title he was like superstar over. Like you can like someone, but people kind of like, he wasn't like superstar level. I'm not saying Chris wasn't good or whatever, but he wasn't like superstar main event caliber person. Yes, he's a great wrestler. No one is going to deny that. But there's a difference between being a great wrestler and being a star. And then once he won the Royal Rumble, he came to WrestleMania, he essentially finally became a star. Or at least people saw him that way. That or he tore his quad again. But again, it worked. I mean, but that's the thing. Here's the thing. Regardless of how you feel about Triple H, people will remember Raw, good or bad, because of that reason. Raw was must-see TV because how it was presented. That's the thing about back then. With SmackDown and Raw, you got two different experiences. You got the in-ring work rate on SmackDown, and some storylines going there, but Raw was very story-driven. If you didn't care about Evolution, well, you sure as hell gonna love Kane and Matt Hardy, Kane and Edge and Matt Hardy. You're gonna love that stuff. Tour Squad every other month. Like Kevin Nash did Tour Squad. It was like in a tag team match, right? I swear I'm trying to get his dirty meter up. I'm honestly trying. I'm trying to get to the season mode just to show you guys, but we're probably gonna. Hey, did you get to this Scotty Steiner's restaurant when it was open? I did not. I didn't know Scott Steiner opened a restaurant. That's new to me. All right, so while Triple H deals with him, I can actually now taunt while he's outside. And I should be able... Why is he not getting... I have to taunt while I'm outside. Oh, that's so stupid. Why do I have to... While the referee is having a... I did not know that. What are the match? Oh, I can't show match rules yet. There. Oh, now you want to count, ref. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I was wondering what the hell you were doing. But I want to read that comment in a second. The only thing I can really do at the moment is throw him in this and do these clotheslines. Triple H wanted to run long ass 5-star match the likes of Goldberg, while Nash just wanted to lay his ass around. Again, at least Triple H was trying. Again, regardless of how you feel about him, he tried. He tried. He was there a lot. So Rick, the big gold belt, that belt was. Oh, he was able to. That was Rick. I got a pic of them with the big gold belt. So, oh, he was actually able to hold the world heavyweight title. How was that? That's cool. All right, we're almost there. We almost filled up the dirty meter. I'm trying. Like I said, oh, you cannot be serious. Well, you get the idea with Triple H. He's I don't know how the hell he's filling it up because he's able to. I know why he's filling it up. He's filling up because he can taunt outside. Smart man, smart man. I'm trying to end it on. There we go. We're almost there. We're almost there. There we go. So now we're about to do the finisher, which is a low blow, which is, well, not that, but a super finisher. There we go. And that normally, when you hit that, that is the main perk of being dirty once you fill up 30 meter. When you hit that, it's essentially over.
2, 3.
It was heavy, man, but it was nice. Rick's nice as hell too. Scott, not too much, but I think he was stressed due to the restaurant. No, I completely understand that. I would be upset too. My restaurant's closing down because of COVID. So I would actually completely understand that. So there you go. I showed you the clean and dirty system. We're gonna eventually circle back because there is actually a kind of a new game mode, sort of ish, kind of, as in it kind of stripped it down a little, but we'll get to that eventually. We're gonna talk about season mode now. In a sense, it's structured like Here Comes the Pain. Instead of, when I mean structure, I just simply mean the menu. However, this is completely different, and you're gonna hear it in the first couple seconds. First things first, new and continue. Same kind of, the only thing that, so unlike Here Comes the Pain, where it literally took the stats and whatever, it only just take this title and superstar point. There's a lot stripped down in this story mode, unfortunately, because unlike Here Comes the Pain, which was non-linear, you could do pretty much whatever you want. There are some branching paths, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Wins and losses affect whatever. For this, they went more of a linear path, story driven, very focused. Essentially, the endings are going to be one but two endings, depending on if you're a face or a heel, if you're a championship or not. Essentially, everyone's going to play through the same story. We're not, with very minimal differences. Actually, what did I just do? Let's say new. So you have a choice. Again, everyone's brand of this is not where you can trade shows. So people who were on SmackDown and Raw, they were on SmackDown and Raw. So for the sake of this demonstration, we're actually going to pick Randy Orton, who is the World Heavyweight Champion. So you guys are saying I kind of prefer new games take on low blow since it can lead to a DQ and also restrict reversal. So as you can see with this game, they were very lenient on the real life rules. It's not until later where, okay, everything that happens in WWE, they take the rules accordingly. As you can see, Triple H was just kicking it ass despite the fact of being a one-on-one match. He should have got disqualified, but that's not what happened. So there's that. He had a hella ring gear in there too. You know, he had the OG Steiner singlets in there. So that, I mean, that's pretty cool. I wish I could have went there. Is it back open? Maybe if I ever have time, I could visit that bar one day, or his restaurant. Now, new games are too reversal having the CPU gets them all the time. We can get to the new games when we get to them, but the problem, again, the new, my take on the new games, here's my 1 sentence take on the games. Maybe you guys feel the same way I do. Back then, the people who made, no, it's done sadly, but it was nice. Damn, so there's that. With these games, and when I mean these games, I'm talking about SmackDown all the way to 2K19 to an extent, but more so probably WWE 13. The people who made the games knew what wrestling was, because this was not their first take on wrestling. They were making wrestling game before they got the license to WWE. Ukes. Visual Concepts, they have the license to the WWE game, but they're making anything but a wrestling. They're trying. Let me rephrase that. There's like two opposing ideas or people are in that company, whatever they're doing over there, Visual Concepts, that just can't figure out what they want. Do they want a wrestling game, or do they want people that are they just have wrestlers in a game that just so happens to have a ring or microtransactions? It's like they just don't know what they want over there. I have the opposite problem with the new games, because when you get the time, it just becomes so easy. Again, they just don't. They lost the psychology of, it's like there's superstars who are wrestlers. There's wrestlers in a game that might be a wrestling game, but then again, it might be Street Fighter. Then again, it might be Tekken. Who knows what they're doing in those games? But we'll talk about those when we get to them. Mustafa, hey Mustafa, thank you for stopping by. I know you heard my whole spiel. We're going over the history of WWE games leading up to how we got to 2K26. Misaki, they made the best games. They knew, again, it's so crazy how Japanese people knew how to make wrestling games, even though when American people have the WWE license, they don't know what the hell they're doing. So just showing off the menu real quick for season mode. The title information, so it's very bare bones now. There's nothing backstage. There is no backstage encounter. Like I said, everything's very linear. There's no backstage. You only have 2 titles. There's no such thing as a tag team titles in this game. There's no cruiserweight. There's no hardcore. There's no women's, even though you couldn't even fight for women's anyway. This is also the last game where the championships are tied directly season mode. Starting with the next game and every game after that, you can finally fight for the titles once again. Last time you were able to do that was SmackDown 2 outside of season mode. Yeah, there was no, again, they really want to do a linear story here. So, but they kept some of the aspects of Here Comes the Pain. Like, again, you need 75 superstar points to fight for the Intercontinental title. Since I'm already World Heavyweight Champion, it's cool. Had I not been champion, I was in contention, there will be a white thing on the right side of this red circle where it allowed me to compete for it. The shop zone, same stuff apply. Very similar to Here Comes the Pain. You get experience points this time, mainly for your creative superstar. You got the legends, which we'll go over the roster eventually. The arenas, the divas, their alternate tires for bra and panty matches, which you went over extensively in Here Comes the Pain. Yeah, and yesterday's stream for those who are new, and the divas menu with new attires for them in their loading screens. Let's see. I really enjoyed the new games and prefer over the PS4 era of WWE games. But anyway, show us the season. That's what we're about to do. It's like I said, it's a hit and miss. Like it's like there's 2 people battling what they want out of that game series. Half of that crew wants a wrestling game. Half the crew, they want a microtransaction game. Here Comes Pain was awesome. I'm a big fan of here. Oh, and I appreciate you, Mustafa. And I'm glad you were able to stop by and watch this. So, captions, you get the idea. Attributes. This is the attributes. Yes, we were talking about this. So I didn't go over this in Here Comes the Pain, but the attributes, as you can see with season mode, you have 2 choices, original and season. If I start with season, it sucks essentially. And that's what those experience points are for. You can, and that's all the experience you're going to get at here. Essentially, this is more so if you want to OP, since this was an era where you couldn't manually switch the attributes and overalls to the superstars, you can only do it in season mode. Obviously, nowadays, you can just do it in regular play, doesn't matter. But yeah, so let's start the program. Now, when I say it's linear, it is. If you're a champion, you're going to start off this way. If you're a challenger for the title, you're going to start off a different way. If you're not let's see. If you're not a either or, it's a completely different story.
Hey man, the GM told me I've got a tag team match tonight. I hope you don't mind, but ask for you as my partner.
So right off the bat, as you can see, there's voice acting. Pretty much, almost the entirety of the roster got voiced. Essentially, they have a part in the season mode. Unlike Here Comes the Pain, there's very specific people for very specific parts in the story mode. They sometimes differ depending on who you pick. Like, had I picked Shelton Benjamin, it would have been someone else. See what I'm trying to say? Every time I see him, I think of his mom. Yeah. It was, again, the Ruthless Aggression era, like, Raw was funny in a good way. It was entertaining. That's what it was meant to be. So I have a choice. So these 2, what they don't tell you is the roster is so short compared. I don't think it's short. It was lacking star power. This in 06 was essentially lacking star power. But that, for the most part, is due to the fact of the roster at the time. They lost. Actually, we're going to get to that eventually. They lost Goldberg, Brock, Scott Steiner. They lost them all. The Rockin' Stone Cold. That's 4 names. That's 5 names right there of actual stars. I know. It wasn't. It's just reality. Like, they just lost 5 stars in less than a year. They lost a lot of star power. So depending on the choice, you either start out as a face or a heel. The top choice is a face, and the bottom part is a heel. So I could make Randy Orton a face, but for the case, we're just gonna pick a heel.
Calm down, champ. Sorry about not asking you, but the match is made. See you in the ring.
So there's that. As you can see, like there's no really other options to do certain stuff. Like, there's no backstage interactions. We're just going straight into the story. The match is already played out. Again, they kept some of the stuff from Here Comes the Pain. The now team with Shelton Benjamin take on Chris Jericho and Rhino. Same rules apply. If I win, I get some cash. Now, yes, it is somewhat non-linear. If you win or lose, it does affect it to a point. But the story is still going to play out how it's going to play out. to the pay-per-view. And obviously, depending on if you win or lose said pay-per-view, if you have a title, you go a different path. If you keep the title, you're going to now take still the championship path. They made it very story. They really focused this time around. Very little branching off, which you could say argues a good thing or bad thing. My take, as long as it's executed correctly, I don't care. Perfect example. This was kind of a mixed bag. 06 was executed perfectly in terms of how to tell a linear story. I think we can all agree on that. And 07 to an extent as well. And then I think the last time a career mode after that was actually good. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. 08, they kind of missed it. They jumped the shark in 08. Let's just say that. But when we get, it's not really their fault. Situations beyond their control made the 08 season mode, quote unquote, jump the shark. So, I get the vision they were going for in that game. Yes, like on paper, it sounded great, but obviously that's the game where something happened in real life, so they had to pivot in a short amount of time, which we'll eventually talk about when we get there in a few days. They kind of had to pivot, so I don't fault them for that. 24/7 mode could have been much more than what it was, but one person's actions made them had to completely pivot to what they had in that game, which is understandable. It's one of those what if situations. And also, as you can, one thing I'll also point out as well, it's not the clean and dirty system is not just pertaining to regular matches. I think the only time it doesn't pertain is like more than does it work in Elimination Chamber? I think there's certain matches where it's not applied at all. But when it comes to singles and tags, the clean and dirty system still applies. I think it's triple threats or is it? I don't recall. There's a certain match type there where this does not apply at all. It was just so bad it was actually good. Hell in a Cell, yeah, I knew it. There was a certain match type where the clean and dirty system does not apply. I think any of the structured matches. Let me get Randy Orton back in. So it was Hell in a Cell. Okay. I knew I wasn't crazy. Okay, the kick up from Randy Orton. Game is just Shawn Michaels' moveset there. Can you check if you can still call your partner? Yep, I just did it. It's the R3 down. I mean, it's the R3. It's the right stick down. You push down on the right stick. You can call in your partner and hit that RKO. Nope. I don't think so. Oh, come on. But the answer is yes, you can. And then I'm going to show you guys what happens after this, but then we're going to take a quick pivot because there's actually a new creation thing that is in this game that debuted in this game. Although it doesn't work the way you think it does. People don't realize how good they have it in today's games. There's actually a new creation tool that's in this game that debuted in this game, but it's something when you look at it. I should have known that was going to happen. I don't know why I thought anything. Both. The answer is both. We're going to look at both because they essentially go hand to hand. Once we're done with this match, and if we have time a little bit, then I'll probably see a little bit more how this story plays out. Why did I call you in, Randy Orton, if you're just not gonna, you know, attack him? Just what's the point? I guess I gotta submit him because I don't know how else. There we go. You can pin when Randy's about to lead a ring to Jericho won't enter. Gotcha. Oh, come on. I was so close. You see how I can complain to the referee? I was so close. You can pin when Randy's about to lead the ring. So, dude. So, okay, I want to try that. There we go, Randy. Look, good job. So, but now, unfortunately, Randy, just grab him. You had one job. Thank you. Good Lord. That's a 1? Are you serious? Now, as I said, unfortunately, you'd be hearing the soundtrack of the game playing, blasting during the music. I mean, during this match. Unfortunately, I can't play. We're still gonna talk about the soundtrack, by the way. We're gonna go over that iconic track listing. But hopefully, you guys like the music that I put in the back instead. Oh, I forgot to call him in. Damn it! I forgot to call him in. I don't know, Randy. No, you're dealing with the wrong Randy. Randy. You're supposed to attack Jericho. You can't do it without mentioning. Oh yeah, we're gonna mention it. This is the soul of the SmackDown versus Raw series. See how I can ignore it?
1, 2, 3, 4.
That's cool. You can essentially. Oh come on! I was about to do my finisher, and now that just wasted time. Rhino, I swear he did that on purpose. There's no way Rhino did not do that on purpose. You're supposed to attack Jericho. Oh, for fuck's sakes. No, do not tag him in. God damn it. This match is going to go a lot longer than what it needs to be. I swear to God. And he just stole my finisher, so that's nice. I should just lose because of that, but whatever. Just set the table in the corner, run it so the computer. Okay, I can do that. Let's try that. Isn't there disqualification? Is there disqualification? I'm convinced like there's no disqualification in this game. Actually, I'm like 100% convinced there's like. I don't know what he thought was gonna happen there. Let's see. Unless I can force him to disqualify himself. I wonder. Why is the referee not counting? Everyone do something. Of course, Randy Orton's just taunting. That is riveting stuff. Oh, come on. Yes, everyone attack everyone. Come on. Randy, don't just stand there. He will DQ himself. I'm about to just DQ myself. This situation is going too crazy. Is it? It might be. You're absolutely right. It might. But countouts not? That doesn't make any sense. You notice how the referee's not counting? That doesn't make any sense to me. We're about to find out. I probably should have checked. Oh my god, I'm getting my ass kicked. Can I please get into the ring? Let's see. Well, that answers that question. That answered that question. Yes, the answer is yes. Yes, it is. I didn't do it on purpose. But regardless, I'll just let you guys know the story. We'll probably get to the story back in a second if we have some time, but it can wait. The story, it doesn't matter if you all win or loss. Because you're going to get to the pay-per-view anyway with the title. You earn some reward experience and whatnot. So fun days. All right. Give me one moment. So yeah, one of the was it new modes? Is it pay-per-view mode? No, it should be. I just miss it. Yeah, there you go. So it's pay-per-view mode, but also in pay-per-view mode, it is create a championship. We're gonna look at both because they go into each other. So remember when I said you can't defend a title outside season mode? I wasn't actually being accurate. You can only defend the title that you make in a championship in pay-per-view mode. We're gonna look at it. So again, this is the first game that actually creates your title. Now, obviously, we're just gonna call it whatever. I have no idea what I'm doing. And call it whatever classification, and you can actually, it's open to anyone, but it also just be a Divas title. So essentially, this is the way if you wanted to get the Divas title in the game and whatnot. Unfortunately, no tag titles, or could there be tag titles? I don't think it is. This is how you would get the Divas title in the game. So the belt, I mean, for what it was, again, it's just starting off. As you can see, the actual belt, if you look at the back, it's reminiscent of the original Attitude Era Championship. Then you can do the strap, material. They're just gonna make something generic. Gonna change the color, center plate. So if you notice on top of the screen there, the cost of it's going up. Now you're probably asking yourself, why is that a thing? Well, because in this, you can only get your championship if you actually pay for it. I'm dead serious. That's the only way you can get your championship. I'm just creating whatever. And then the jewels. Oh, can't forget that. The more jewels you put in, the more it costs. So I made whatever the hell this is. And do I have enough money for it? Do I? No, I do not. Also, Baby Mimo was also SmackDown 1 and 2. You're right, it actually was. It made a return in SmackDown vs. Raw. Thank you for correcting me, no one. I appreciate that. I can't buy it because I don't have enough money. So yes, this for you to get a championship, they forced you to grind either through season mode or the new challenge mode. But we'll get to that in a second. Just want to show off create a championship back in the day. Yes, they made you. So people complain about microtransactions and whatever. At least they're not making you pay for the title that you have to create. Imagine making them pay for the title you have to create. At least, granted, if this was in game, so it makes perfect. This didn't matter, but at least, I know people complain about microtransactions, and I'm not a fan of it either in the recent games. But imagine they start charging you to create a championship. Probably shouldn't give them any ideas. And now they have a couple. You can just create your own or play a sample. Let's say WrestleMania, for example. It's kind of a abridged version of the card that was based in real life. Once again, it's not like the World Heavyweight title is on the line or the WWE title. And they actually have like the cutscene, even though they're only showing Triple H and Shawn Michaels, despite the fact that I love how the X button's right there on Titantron. That is absolutely hilarious. Taking notes. Yep, I'm pretty sure. Like I said, I know people complain, but it hasn't gotten that bad yet. Oh, it's gonna get bad though. if they ever start doing that. And again, the presentation. This was also in Here Comes the Pain, but they dialed it up a notch in this game. As you can see. And yes, there was actually commentary. I just turned it off because I just didn't want him to talk over me. But the commentary was definitely a step up from Just Bring It, just to let you know. So yeah, like I said, it's a abridged version of the actual real card. Obviously, they took not everything's represented. For example, case in point, the Rock and Sock versus Evolution is not here. The actual cruiserweight, what was it? The cruiserweight open is not there either. You have Undertaker and Kane, and you have your triple threat match, but none of the titles. Kane is really a good person. We talk character wise, just in general. Yeah, I mean, he's a cool guy in real life. But yeah, you get the point. Just the abridged version without the title. So it's just something cool. If you actually just wanted to play the real life card, this was the perfect way to do it. You cannot miss WWF Raw tonight. Are you talking about the wait? What are you referring to? Okay, Raw was just no. What is today's date? Commentary quotes from Just Bring It. Oh yeah, that's what I said. It was a step up from Just Bring It. Like they actually felt like they weren't reading off a script. It was just natural as if they were on TV in this game. Compared, like I said, Just Bring It. I didn't even bother cutting it on because there was no point in listening to that. I get what you mean. So yeah, just wanted to show I'll create a pay-per-view there. And now, there was a certain other part you see right here that obviously is not accessible anymore. Online, yes. This was the first WWE game to feature online. This was back in the day where you didn't just have a console and just connect to your Wi-Fi. No, you had to take like 5 extra steps to get to that point. And this is also part of, I mean, the servers was actually made from, I was used by GameSpy, I believe, which is, if you ever wondered why GameSpy was on the back, their logo was on the back of the SmackDown vs. Raw logo because they were giving their servers to this game. Obviously, I can't connect this, but I actually have something instead to show you, which is, if you give me a moment. One moment. So credit to IGN. They actually have something from 14 years ago. I don't know how it is up there. Yep, I appreciate it. Credit to IGN. They actually have online gameplay just to briefly show you what it was like. So essentially, this is very archaic. The waiting room, like I said, was powered by GameSpy was actually, even though does GameSpy even exist anymore? I don't even think they do. There was only like 2 match types, singles and brawl and painting matches. You're just waiting for a guest. The funny part is the servers back in the day, if you would have comparison, they weren't that much different from servers now in today's game. So that's to tell you all you need to know about how they handle wrestling servers. The last good wrestling servers in a wrestling game, correct me if I'm wrong, in my personal opinion, was WWE 12. That was the last time everything in the servers were perfectly fine. Ever since then, online's a crapshoot. I stopped playing online after 12. You will die. You see how you can type in there? You die. You suck. You can actually type in the chat. Little right there. This was before voice chat was a thing. Oh, so don't pick the Undertaker. I wonder if that was a coincidence. And then you get the idea. So yeah, just wanted to showcase that off. That was, again, people are complaining about I know people currently are complaining that in today's time you get to play online and not go through this. Yeah, I know people are complaining about the match types, like they took out some. It was literally only 2 matches back in the day, so there's that. And now, like I said, there was a new, speaking of match types, what a nice segue. There is essentially no new matches from Here Comes the Pain to SmackDown versus Raw. There was essentially no new matches added. With that said, there is some variations. For example, in the elimination chamber, you can actually have a tornado 6-man tag chamber, which debuted in this game. Before just a normal one, you can actually have a tornado 6-man tag chamber in this game. Another thing that they added was the parking lot brawl. Parking lot brawl, not to be mistaken with backstage brawl, because they took that out. Instead, what they did, which I'm about to showcase to you, I think the perfect people to showcase is what it was based off of. John Cena and Eddie Guerrero. Instead of having multiple options to fight backstage in different parts, they essentially stripped it down to just one arena. But you can interact with the cards and whatnot. Is to beat your opponent by using the cards. Yeah, so essentially it's just that. So the drawback is running around, roaming backstage, they took out, but at least they based it off the actual match that happened. And this was the other match where I said they took out the clean and dirty meter. If I can throw him, I'm hitting the circle button. There we go. There's an example of what I mean. This is really like the first time you're interacting with the environment. I know back in like Here Comes the Pain, Shut Your Mouth by just Irish whipping people, certain stuff. But this was, I didn't realize it was pinfall. I thought it was knockout. Huh. That changes a lot. I thought it was like knockout. Yeah, the hydraulics of the car there. So every car has something different is going on. Like that. Let's see over here. Ah, yes. Eddie's lowrider. And then you can actually, I believe you can climb up here. Yes, you can. And then you can either jump off and have fun. Luckily, it didn't affect me that much in the damage. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice concept. It's more, again, it's just it's a compact backstage brawl. It just sucks that this was the only backstage brawl option. 2006, they added a new spot as well, and they continue to add little spots, but you couldn't. The idea of just roaming backstage basically died with Here Comes the Pain. So that was another thing like they took out. The idea like that they took out that part. Again, it's give or take. At least they didn't completely take out backstage. Of a glitch in Here Comes the Pain where you climb the Times Square. The building by pressing square, you can do a huge jump. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. All the way at the top, right? Or are you talking about the helicopter? That's the one thing I regret not showing yesterday's scene was the backstage where it came to the helicopter. Just wanted to quickly show off that. And like I said, the elimination chamber, even though there's really no need to show off that at the moment. The building, yeah, okay, the actual Times Square building, gotcha. Give me one moment. So, as tradition at this point, we're going to be looking at the cut content that was in SmackDown versus Raw real quick. Because, as I said, there's a bunch of wrestlers that left the company, and even though they left the company, it doesn't mean they weren't meant to be part of the game. And other wrestlers that were supposed to be part of the game, but stuff happens. So, perfect example was the British Bulldog. So, the interesting part about British Bulldog is, even though there's no render of him, the model is actually on disc of the game. It just is not accessible through regular means. You actually have to hack it. What I find fascinating about that is because the reason why he wasn't part of the main roster in the game is because of the licensing negotiations. So, why did THQ not go out their way to make sure he was removed? Because this is technically a licensing nightmare. If someone were to put him in luckily back, this is a day and age where again, internet wasn't a thing, but it's like if he was like playable and the mainstream knew about it through hacking, I think that would have been like a lawsuit happening between the Bulldog estate and THQ. But again, this was backstage. I mean, this was back then where internet wasn't really a thing, so it didn't really matter. It probably would have been not a widespread thing. And so, yeah, but I just find fascinating that British Bulldog is in fact on disc, the retail disc of SmackDown versus Raw, but he's just not accessible to regular means. Obviously, just use that Game Shark and you're good to go. Brock Lesnar, as I already mentioned. Yes, they did. They put him in the next game, which we talk about tomorrow, by the way. Brock Lesnar, he had his render. He's actually in the public beta. So I think they were in a good relationship, but again, the main reason is just it fell through. So essentially, at that time, it didn't work out, but they made sure to work it out in the next game. Which I feel like they really want him in there because Bret Hart is in this game, so they really wanted, the Hart Foundation. But it just never was meant to be, at least for the original SmackDown versus Raw. Brock Lesnar, he's technically in the game in the public beta. Well, his selection render, let me correct that. His selection render is in the game. I don't know if it's accessible. I don't know what happens if you click on it. But his and Rakishi's selection render is in the game, which goes to show how in August 2004, which means up until that point, they consider him being in the game. Because this was also around the time they were negotiating him trying to come back. But that also fell through, so there you go. But there is a render of Brock Lesnar. That's how he's supposed to look, not that ministry. That's funny. Cactus Jack, it is interesting why he wasn't in the game because Mankind's in the game. There's really no reason. The Basham brothers, there's really no reason why they're not in the game. They end up being in 06, I believe. That they are in 06. Lita always baffled me why she was not in this game. It really makes no sense why she's not in this game. I get that I think this was the time period she was injured, but so what? And it just didn't make any sense. That was like they were really missing the women's division star power right there with Lita. Mick Foley, again, they have Mankind in there. They do have his creative move set. Ricky Steamboat, he ended up being, when was the next time Ricky Steamboat was actually in a wrestling game? Jesus. Was it 2K14? Was the next time he was actually in? No, it was SmackDown Result 2011. 2011 was the next time he was actually in. I think, 2011 would have been the first time he was actually in one of these games. And then Rikishi, same thing with Lesnar. He's in the public beta. 2K14. It's either 2K14 or 11. One of those two. I'm like 80% sure it might have been 11 through DLC. I know for a fact he's in 2K14. But I'm like 80% sure he was in 2K. I mean, SmackDown was Raw 2011, whether it's DLC or not. But then the same thing with Rikishi. Oh, so yes, he was in All Stars. And the proof that Doug and Danny Basham was supposed to be in this game, there actually is a call for Lillian Garcia and Tony Chimmel. So here's an example.
Doug and Danny, the Basham Brothers.
So he went to the extent of having audio being recorded for them, but just again, reasons unknown. Same thing with Stone Cold. Why isn't Stone Cold in this game? Couldn't tell you why. I know they were kind of having some backstage. I mean, there was some, inner turmoil between him and Vince during this 1 year period because he's in every game after that. There was some little miniature falling out at this time because he's literally in, I think he's in Day of Reckoning, which that's why it's another baffling. I think he's in Day of Reckoning, but the thing is Day of Reckoning came out before SmackDown versus Raw. So there's that. So again, we're going to get to the soundtrack. So even though the SmackDown vs. Raw soundtrack is iconic, there is actually a hidden song that's actually on the game disc, but for some reason it just does not play. It's in the file. So I just don't, why does it never play? They just cannot tell me. It's Money by Cypress Hill, which I just don't know why I never played. But it's actually in the file. I wish I would play, but I just want to get copyrighted. And then there's also a unused jingle from SmackDown, Shut Your Mouth, which is very strange how something from 2 games ago still in the file. Again, same thing with Here Comes the Pain. This guy was able to a bunch of backstage areas. Essentially, the backstage areas that are in the cutscenes are actual full-fledged spots that are like designed to be played in, but they are just unused. Like they designed a way that could have been played, but they just didn't bother doing that. And the regional differences, the Japanese version removed online multiplayer, which is very interesting because the Japanese, with the PS2, they had online. Like, I don't know why they put online in there, like Dragon Quest. Yeah, same guy as yesterday. Yeah, right. He really dig through this. Like, I was shocked about hearing about that because they were heavy on online at this time, more so than America. America's online prominence didn't happen until like Halo and World of Warcraft, but Japan, they had Dragon Quest, so they were like heavy on the online play factor. Remove stuff. One of the biggest sins that they ever did, which I never understood, and they never brought it back, was create an animation. They removed it for no reason. Why? I don't know. But some of the text of it is still there. Final Fantasy, yeah, I'm about to say Final Fantasy 14 is a perfect example, even though Final Fantasy 14 didn't exist back then, but you get my point. So the fact that they removed it, that is fascinating. And then there's unused animations. They're supposed to be alternate. One of the taunts or one of the animations had to do with The Rock, and then another taunt for Rene Dupree. It actually broke the game. Wait, you talking about online or for Final Fantasy? Wait, what exactly are you talking about? Wait, I just wanted to go over that. In terms of the cut content. Oh, 1 second. I knew I said we were gonna go over the roster, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. Wrong screen. The roster. Again, the match, as I said, the only new quote unquote was Tornado 6-man tag in the parking lot brawl. But everything else was my cousin used to create animations, which really made the character speed 4 times normal speed. I see. That's probably, maybe that was the reason why. I don't think it was just fun. I don't know why he took it out. Now the roster of this game, who said it? The roster is lacking. Both Tony and Mustafa said it. Yeah, the roster is lacking in this game. It's just a product of its time. It was based off of the roster that was in 2000, the end of 2003 to mid 2004. So, A-Train was on Raw. I thought he was on SmackDown. So here was the roster with the legends. So we're actually in honor of it being Raw vs SmackDown, we're going by roster. A-Train, Batista, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Christian, Chuck Palumbo, Edge, Garrison K, which I believe is the only time he's in a game, Kane, Matt Hardy, Molly Holly, Randy Orton, Rhino, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Shelton Benjamin, Stacy Keibler, Tajiri, Triple H, Trish Stratus, and Victoria. The roster was lacking. It was very small. How many people were in there total? I think it was a tad bit. No, I think it was almost the same amount as Here Comes the Pain. Big Show, Booker T, Bubba Ray Dudley, Charlie Haas, Chal Guerrero, Devon Dudley, Eddie Guerrero, Hardcore Holly, JBL, John Cena, Kurt Angle, Mark Jindrak. Is Mark Jindrak in 06? I do not remember. Paul Heyman, but only as a manager. Rene Dupree, Rey Mysterio, Rico, Rob Van Dam, Sable, Sky Too Hottie, Tori Wilson, and The Undertaker. They definitely added more legends. We already went through the legends. Andre the Giant, Animal, Bret Hart, Brutus Beefcake, Hawk, the Road Warriors, Jimmy Snuka, Undertaker. Essentially, they just updated the model that was from Here Comes the Pain with the more polygons. Mankind, Mask Kane makes his return. Roddy Piper, Legends version of Roddy Piper, by the way. So remember, I showed you guys yesterday in the cut content, there was supposed to be a Legends version of Roddy Piper. They decided to use the Legends Roddy Piper, but it was just his 2003 look. It was meant to be this one, but they decided to use it in this game. And then The Rock, who's now a legend, which is fascinating how he suddenly became a legend, even though in the previous game, he was just a regular superstar. Goes show how times fly. And managers, NPCs, Paul Heyman. Again, Eric Bischoff is in the game. Michael Cole, Lillian Garcia, Kurt Angle in the suit, Vince, Taz, the coach, Tony. You get the idea. So yeah, this was the roster. Again, I know people always that's the one thing about the roster back then. They didn't like it was a fine. I mean, it's a product of its time. They lost 5 stars in less than a year. The Rock, Stone Cold, Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, and Scott Steiner. That's gonna take a hit. That's why you have to build new stars. It was gonna take a hit. Let's see. Oh, I guess we're finally gonna talk about the soundtrack. Give me a second. I did have this from IGN, but there's not really to it. It was just essentially, again, this is back in the day where there was no special influencer creators being flown out. Just one guy trying to get the news, contact the company of figuring out what the hell's in this game. So he just did a quick thing. What superstars can we expect? Essentially the same roster. As you can see, however, this I know why I kept it, because look at the date. As of May, no, where's the date? Why he updated? God damn it. Essentially, this was around like August or so, and right there, as you can see, Rikishi, who was not in the final version of the game. Just want to show you how quickly stuff can happen. I believe this happened how many months before? I believe this was like around August, and Rikishi was 100% supposed to be in the game, but they took him out. And at the time, they only knew about the 3 legends. The graph, it was just essentially an overview of what was to be shown. What I find fascinating about this tells me, you see like the referee, this tells me at one point we was supposed to no, I think this is a cutscene of the story mode, which is very strange because there's no way HBK and John Cena will interact because they're on different brands. So I don't know how that's happening. It was obviously just a beta and they were just using anyone. There's no way possible this can actually happen in the game because they're on separate brands. Just letting you know. Create your own bells. We already went through that. Music. The reason why they're asking, could you add music? Because the Xbox you were allowed to put music in the game. So again, this was back then where they were making different wrestling games for different consoles. We didn't enter the era where one series was on multiple consoles. Women did not have their season mode yet. They were asking for it back then. And this was just a PS2 exclusive. Buried Alive is not in, although it would be in the following game. So there's that. You get the idea. That's it. Now we're going to talk, as I said, personally my favorite part, as just for memories, the soundtrack. As I said, it's the first WWE game to have a licensed soundtrack outside of their entrances, of course not, and their themes of the music. So it's just looking at this puts a smile on my face. A product of its time. Like, again, they knew their audience. They knew the type of music we liked. And I would say this, from here to 2007, influenced my taste in music so much. If it wasn't for the SmackDown vs. Raw soundtrack, I don't know what type of music I would like. But thanks to SmackDown vs. Raw, I knew exactly the type of music I like. So as you can see, Power Man 5000 held the soundtrack down. They really gave them a lot. With When Worlds Collide, which is the opening. No, actually, it's Last Night on Earth is actually the opening theme of the intro movie, which I did not show you guys because copyright. And then Worlds Collide is the first thing you hear when you see the logo. So you had When Worlds Collide, The Way It Is, Riot Time, The Last Night on Earth. Then you had Bring the Noise from Anthrax. I'm gonna mispronounce that, but for Bonecracker. Styles of Beyond for Superstars. Breaking Benjamin, one of my favorite bands, with Firefly and Polyamorous. Zebrahead, also one of my favorite bands, Alone and Falling Apart. But one of my favorite songs of all time, and I'm about to go on a rant, Core the Angle. Arguably the best song in my personal opinion. I had to rank top 3. Core, Zebrahead in any order, and Breaking Benjamin in any order. And then you had Pre-Thing, Can't Stop as well, and Chase. Oh my god, you can't rank them all. Oh my god. There's actually good too. You cannot rank these songs. This is what I'm talking about. This soundtrack in basically, there's an argument to be made that 07 has the greatest soundtrack in WWE game history, and I can't even deny that. If 07 did not exist, this will go down as the greatest soundtrack in WWE game history, in my personal opinion. 07 is like, they knocked it out the park, but if 07 did not exist, I would argue SmackDown versus Raw is arguably the greatest soundtrack of all time. But quick rant on the core. Unfortunately, for reasons unbeknownst to me, if you try to, so mostly every single song on here is on Apple Music or Spotify. I have Apple Music. For reasons unbeknownst to me, Core is barely on Apple Music, and they have a version of The Angle. However, it's like a acoustics version, whatever you want to call it. It's not the rock version or the original version. They don't have the original album that is in this game. So it's like the only way you can literally listen to the song is either through the game itself or watch, someone posting on YouTube, thankfully. But it's like there's no official way to listen to the Angle song that was in SmackDown versus Raw officially. So it just sucks, and it blows my mind. One of my favorite songs of all time, and it's not there. In my opinion, the second best soundtrack of SmackDown. I actually like SmackDown vs. Raw 2. They had some sleeper. I think the issue of SmackDown vs. Raw 2008, it's like a mixed bag. Like there wasn't a theme going on there. It was a lot of. I personally like it, but it was just it's like a mismatch. Like they were all good songs. Like you say, I look at 2008 soundtracks like 2009. They were like a bunch of songs mixed mashed together. I don't think it was like a perfect album, I guess you could say. 07, 06, and the original is like perfect example of like this is an album. If like bands got together and they put together the perfect album, it would be this. Like 08 and 09, I liked the song. Like for example, for God's sakes, Egypt Central from 09. Okay, like what are you talking about? I listen to that basically every morning, but when I wake up. You Make Me Sick and what the hell is the other one? I'm drawing a blank. Egypt Central from 09 is You Make Me Sick, and Jesus Christ, I do not remember. And 08, I'm drawing a blank, but two of my was Welt and another one from 08. Bullet with the name. That's 07. Like I said, Bullet with my name. We're gonna get to 07. I have a whole section dedicated to 07 soundtrack. But yeah, just we had to talk. Like I said, we had to talk about the soundtrack because we can't evil, of course. Yes, that was in 08 as well. That's what I was remembering. I knew I was missing one. I like that song. And yeah, we're gonna go through the soundtracks of each of the games, but I had to really have this section dedicated to this one because this was started. This put my taste in music. The type of music I like is solely because of the SmackDown versus Raw soundtrack series. I mean, of the SmackDown versus Raw series. If 07 did not exist, this would be arguably the greatest soundtrack in wrestling video game history, in my personal opinion. Then 06 stays in second. Basically, it's second place 06, first place. If 7 did not exist, it would be the original as I consider these top two. And then third place is a tie between 08 and 09, in my personal opinion. But yeah, we just had to talk about that. Let's see. I guess before we wrap up, we could just see one more part of what would have been the season mode. See like the follow-up of that. Just really want to show you what happened since I lost. Like I said, losing and winning doesn't really matter until you get to the pay-per-view in this game, just to be honest with you. No matter if I lost or won that, unless there was a specific consequence, the story's going to play out exactly the same until you get to the pay-per-view. For the most part. And by the other side note, this is also the last game where
last week against the world heavyweight champion, and I've got to say, I wasn't impressed.
You could hear the voice acting. Like again, I must stress this is their first time voicing these superstars. They're reading off a script, obviously, and it sounds like they're in a warehouse. I'm not bashing it. It's just back then I thought it was amazing. Now looking at it like that, you could tell this is their first time reading off a script when it came to a video game.
I can say for a fact that in a pure wrestling contest, I'm the greatest superstar there is, Daddy, and he knows it.
And what doesn't help, as I said, this is the last game as well where they did not do mocap. These are all computer animated stuff. 2006 onward, everything. Well, for 06, I think it's like more than half of it's mocap, but then everything afterwards, they start to mocap everything. And now I'm going to go to the ring. You see, he has the World Heavyweight title. It's the same World Heavyweight title from Here Comes the Pain. They did not change it at all. They just brighten it just a little. And unfortunately, even though Randy Orton has a voice in this game, when you're actually playing as a superstar, they don't voice it for some strange reason. I don't know why. It is mocap, but it is a bad one. You talk about 06, yeah. But again, that was the first time, like, they over exaggerate everything. You're gonna hopefully see it. Again, I'm not gonna fault them when it's your first time doing something. You can't fault them because it's like a proof of concept. As long as you don't keep doing it that way, then it's not a problem. Cough, cough, 2K. But we'll get there.
You better watch your mouth, Junior. I guarantee that this won't be the last time I'm in the ring with you, and then we'll put your little theory to the test.
And yes, the soundtrack will be blasting right now. Oh. And you can see essentially the same walkout that was in Here Comes the Pain and Shut Your Mouth. They just kept some of the stuff. But you see, like, regardless, like, he didn't even reference. This is what I mean when I said the wins and loss don't matter, because there's a specific story playing out. He basically didn't even reference that. He just said I was in the ring with him. He didn't say he either won or lost.
I can't believe the stuff he was saying about you, and I can't believe he believes it. Hey, I got a match with him tonight. Want to come down to the ring with me and do a little scouting?
After that stupid tag match you sucked me into, yeah. See, so had I been a face, I would have actually. I think I would have actually been at the ringside with him.
Whoa, cool out, man. I was trying to do you a favor.
Were you though? And now here's Rhino.
Oh, now what's he doing?
And then Jericho wins.
Oh man, JR, he's got
Look at that big behind sledgehammer.
too soon.
Again, a lot of these cutscenes were taken from Here Comes the Pain, but they're just some of it's voiced. And now here's Eric Bischoff.
Look, I know you're upset, but the trainers are looking at Shelton Benjamin right now, and there's really nothing you can do. You've still got a main event match tonight, so get ready.
Against who? I thought you fought Jericho, unless I'm fighting Rhino. Who the hell am I fighting? Oh, speaking of the devil, I am fighting Rhino. What am I about to say? Against who? Like, what are you talking about? And yes, even the judge, you saw Eric Bischoff and Kurt Angle, because Kurt Angle at the time was general manager for Theater Long, who has a heavy presence in the next game, which we'll be looking at tomorrow. There's a reason why. So again, this is all by design. There's a reason why I purposely picked Raw, because I wanted to pick SmackDown story to showcase for tomorrow, because I always found that one a lot more interesting and funny on the 06 side. Oh, speaking of which, I should bring that up. So even though I picked Randy Orton, I could have picked someone from SmackDown, but as I said, this was more of just a character swap. Essentially, they played. I mean, I understand when you're trying to do something new, you're trying to make sure, especially when you have a yearly release. Essentially, regardless of who you picked on SmackDown, like let's say who was champion, JBL. If I were to pick JBL, who I'm assuming is the WWE champion, it would have been, you saw Shelton Benjamin, it would have insert person from SmackDown, and that's who would have been picked if I was a champion. Same thing with the Intercontinental title, whatever mid-level story that was, same thing, rules apply. And if I wasn't that, if I was either or, I'd either be contending for the title. If I was even lower in the card than that, it would be a storyline with Tori Wilson. And you either character swap Renee Dupree or Tajiri. I hate seeing her leave. I love watching her go. I don't remember the dialogue. Yes. I believe both, Jerry Lawler would say that. I think Taz would say something slightly different. But yeah, essentially the thing with this season mode, there was no reason to replay the season mode. If you already played Raw, you would have saw everything with SmackDown. Just a character swap, which is very funny because would you believe me if I told you what I just described to you for a game that came out in 2004 is the exact same thing that they did in 2K26. You would not believe if I told you that, but that's essentially what they did with the My Rise story. A character swap. Instead of being a male superstar, you're a female superstar, and you do the exact same thing, making it completely pointless to play either of the two modes. Besides grinding for RXP, but we'll get to that when we get to that. It's just, I find it fascinating how something that they learn, again, with Fuchs, that's why I must stress. They listen to fan feedback. Obviously, people were 50-50. Thank God I didn't buy it. Here's the thing with 2K26. Again, I had my opinions on the other day. Best thing I would say. Arguably, at this moment, the best gameplay in the 2K series. I'm not saying it's Here Comes the Pain, but it's essentially the best gameplay of 2K series. The perfect balance with simulation and arcade. With that said, as I said, it's like two different people working on the game. On one hand, you have people who wants to make the perfect wrestling game, and the other hand, you want people who just my faction. But that it is what it is. So because of that, it's like we're fighting this. There's like an inner battle that's happening with the current games. They can't be perfect because they have one group just trading card games in a wrestling game for some reason. Like I can't even explain. I don't even have an answer for that. But yeah, when Yuke's realized the feedback of this game, where it's like, I mean, yeah, it's cool to have Raw versus SmackDown and like, yeah, two different brand stories, but is it really two different brands if it's just a character swap? They listen to the feedback, and you're going to see in next year's story, how they went about doing it. And yes, it actually makes you want to play both stories, which gives it replay value. Who would have thought? And is it linear? Yes, but it gives you a reason to play both story modes. One of the reasons why, because they actually did a very interesting way of unlocking something that forces you to play the story mode, which I'm okay with because I was going to play it anyway. Exactly, that is why Yuke's left. I mean, yeah, Yuke's left because besides the fact that visual concepts were getting in their way of their vision, it was just, there was no competition. They weren't pushing themselves anymore. Like the innovation, you could tell the innovation was gone when they pretty much after, I don't want to spoil it. But pretty much after a certain part in the 2K series, the innovation from Yuke's was gone, which is part of the reason why they left. At least they gave us their best creation in one of their games before everything just fell off the cliff. So please give them credit there. I'm surprised this whole time I have done nothing dirty, which is funny because again, it goes to show the cutoff point. Randy Orton should have been a face at this time. I believe he's still treated as a heel, or maybe he isn't in the exhibition. Because he's still World Heavyweight Champion, which is why cutoff point was around August to September. When still at WWE 13 too. Then every year the gameplay was. We're good. You know, I'm glad you're here, man, because it's actually a certain game where the whole topic of that game where it's like, we're going to get to that point. I won't spoil it for you, but there's a certain game where it's like essentially what you just described, where it's like there's no selling point to. I won't spoil which one. We're getting closer to it. We're a long ways away, but we're getting close to it at the same time. Where it's like there's no reason to buy this game if you already have the other one. Regardless of how people feel about certain games, i.e. SVR 2008 for the direction that they went, at least there's, oh, Jesus Christ. Where the hell did that come from? Regardless of how you feel about the game, at least everything, there's a reason to go back and play the game. It's different. There's a certain game that started the trend of, yeah, there's no reason to play this game outside of a roster update. I wonder if you could guess which one you think I'm referring to before we get to it.
1, 2, 3.
I don't know what I stand for. So here's the thing. I actually am a 08 apologist. I'm actually a 08 apologist. I actually love 08. I'm just talking about the general public. I'm talking about general public. I'm not going to say yes or no to your answer, but I feel like we're both on the same page. I feel like you and me are on the same wavelength when it comes to WWE games. No one. I'm starting to feel that, and I really appreciate you being part of that stream. Where we're two sides of the same coin here. But you know, I am a 08 apologist. I know people crap on this game. 07 was the GOAT. Well, thank you, Blake Zone, for stopping by. 2 days from now, we're going to be talking about 07, but tomorrow's 06. We're going through the whole history, how we got to 2K26. So, but yeah. Just showing you again, it didn't matter if I won or lost. That's why I said someone playing the OG Smack. This is part of the reason why I'm doing it. I feel like we're in a environment in our community where we just focus on the current stuff. People complain about the current stuff. Okay, there's a crap load of games you can showcase on your channel that people talk again of how the glory days of wrestling, but no one wants to do that because, you know, they think people only watch the new stuff, which is true to a certain point, but it's just how you present it. You guys are here live, so I'm obviously doing something right. And I appreciate it, no, but yeah, I feel like we're both on the same page with game we're talking about. I am, when we get to 08, and you see what I title it, we are on the same wavelength when it comes. I'm a 08 apologist. I will say that publicly. I know people crap on that game, but I played, confession, I played 08 more than 07 and 06 I never had an issue with the game. I know people crap on it for a very specific reason when we will get there in a couple days, but yeah. So before we adjourn, there's a couple more things I'm going to talk about. Again, with all this change with SmackDown vs. Raw over Here Comes the Pain, how did the general critics receive it? Actually, not as bad as you think, because there's only like 6 points down. It was still in the green. I think some of them explained it best. Like, again, the fact that SmackDown vs. Raw, what they were trying to, I love you, I appreciate it. What they were trying to accomplish, as I said in the beginning of the stream, the presentation, they wanted to make the characters feel like wrestlers. They wanted to make Triple H a heel. Prior to this game, we were just playing as wrestlers without any meaning. Where they started to finally put personalities into them. That's what this game was about, and they succeeded in that. This is indeed the best version of WWE SmackDown there has been yet, even though it's SmackDown versus Raw. Like, again, generally, because it played like Here Comes the Pain, even though they slowed it down slightly, it was fine. But there's one thing I think perfectly describes it. They gave it a 70, but here's his reasoning. Even the new additions to the franchise lack enough depth to warrant picking this up. He already owns Here Comes the Pain. And that was essentially the problem with this game. It took the right direction. They really focused on the brand stuff. But if you already played Here Comes the Pain, there is no difference in terms of the gameplay. They added stuff on top of it. But if you enjoyed Here Comes the Pain, and as we just talked about, the roster, right? Talked about the roster, it was lacking. And then, so if you didn't like the roster, there was no reason to buy this game if you already enjoyed Here Comes the Pain gameplay. Which is why the next game took a very bold step in less than a year. This game was the official end of the arcade era. Because with SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, they usher in the new era of how we would play wrestling games, the simulation era. So thank you guys for watching. We'll be back tomorrow for SmackDown vs. Raw 2006. For those who are watching live, I very much appreciate it. No One, the Blake Zone. Who else was here? Tony and Mustafa. I really appreciate it. And Francis was here as well in the beginning. Thank you guys, and be seeing you tomorrow.